Did we get some members of the public?
It looks like it. It says there's 14 participants, and so there's right now 5 attendees from the public. Kit Saganor, Scott Castle, Wendy Olson, Emily R., and Apostle Victor. Another one when someone else just came on, Boba 94501.
We have somebody to chair this meeting so we can move forward.
I assume it's going to be board member Mizell.
That's what I assume.
Yes. Yeah, I'll wait to call the meeting to order, but yeah, we'll have to discuss a bit more here. And to be clear for the public, when I say discuss, we merely got on this call about 2 minutes ourselves, just to reorient ourselves to the delay. And if we get more folks on, I'll give a deeper explanation once we start this meeting, but I guess it's already 7:47. So I will call this meeting to order. The time is 7:47. The date is Wednesday, September 14th, 2022. This is a meeting of the City of Berkeley's Police Accountability Board. And I think we got to do call to order and roll call before we go farther.
Nathan, you need to read that.
Oh, the whole blurb? Yes, thank you for reminding me. Pursuant to Government Code Section 5493E and the state declared emergency, this meeting will be conducted exclusively through teleconference and Zoom video conference. The COVID state of emergency continues to directly impact the ability of members of the public to meet safely in person and presents an imminent risk to health of the attendees. Therefore, no physical meeting locations available. To access this meeting, I must join for no options. Odds are, if you're here, you already found the link. If not, you can tell folks they can call in at 669-900-6833 and then enter the meeting ID 822-3790-2987. If you wish to comment or give public comment, you can use the raise hand function or press *9 if you're on your phone and wait to be recognized. Thank you, Board Member Calavita. Okay, if we can call the roll when you are ready, Mr.
Rodriguez.
Yes, sorry, I used to call you your first name.
Thank you, Chairman Mizell. Board Member Mizell.
Here.
Board Member Calavita.
Here.
Board Member Harris.
Here.
Board Member Leftwich.
Here.
Board Member Levine.
Here.
Board Member Moore.
Here.
Board Member Owens.
Here.
And Board Member Ramsey.
Here.
All are present.
Thank you,
This
Mr.
meeting is
Rodriguez. Yes. For members of the public, I think I can safely say on behalf of the board, we apologize for the significant delay in the start of this meeting. We are navigating a number of different issues in terms of our staffing and making sure the board can fully function. We've had great folks like Mr. Rodriguez who's stepping in from the mayor's office to help us out in conducting this meeting, and great staff behind who've done a lot of work behind the scenes to even make this happen. Unfortunately, we ran into really just a technical issue that delayed the start of this meeting. So as we go to approval of the agenda, board members, I think we should, discuss what we feel we really need to address and in what order things should go. Board Member Owens.
So I was going to remove item 10 from the agenda anyway. So I say we start there. I honestly think we can power through this if we don't deal with the regulations, because I think the regulations, I don't think we're ready for that. I thought we were waiting to hear back from the city attorney's office before we did anything further on the regulations. So really that would just leave us with the election of the chairperson, the chief's report, subcommittee reports, which it really won't be much because we've been on hiatus. The equipment use report, which what I'm hearing is there's a time sensitivity to that. And that would pretty much run us through the entire meeting if we take that tack. So that's my recommendation.
Second.
Board member, I think it was board member Leftwich.
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing about removing item 9A since we haven't heard from the city attorney. Also, we don't have a director, and I think we should hold off until those things happen.
Makes sense to me. Board member Calavita.
Yes, I was going to say that number 5, election of a new chairperson, actually, I think is kind of a mistake because we need to perhaps discuss, I mean, we definitely should discuss a new chairperson, but I would put that under 10 new business at the end of the meeting, briefly discuss that. And the election would happen at the next scheduled meeting, which is the 28th. Yeah, that's when we would have the election. So I would move 5 to 10. And rephrase it as discussion of new chairperson.
Yeah, so, yeah, we can't change the wording on the agenda at the moment, but I believe.
Okay, well, that's fine. It can
No,
say
I-
election. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I believe we're okay in doing the nomination process, given how that is substantially related to the election process itself. But your motion is to move it to 10A.
Yes, I don't think it makes sense up there before the various reports. Is
Do
there
we
a
need a
second?
second? Yes, I'll second that.
Thank you.
These folks, my sound just went out for about 15 seconds, so.
There was a
um,
second of that. Julie Leftwich
Okay.
seconded.
Okay. Mr. Rodriguez, are you comfortable with where we are?
Yeah, so we are moving a little quickly, but I do want to reiterate, there was a motion to remove item 10. That was put on by first Owens, that was then seconded by Ramsey. What hasn't been removed by way of motion is item 9, which was recommended by board member Leftwich, but is there a second to that?
Well, I second it.
Thank you. And then now there has been, as a review again, motion to, was it move item 10 to 5 or no longer move forward with that?
Move 5 to 10.
Got it. And then that was seconded by a board member Leftwich.
Yep.
Okay, and I don't believe any of those motions directly conflict. So, okay,
Can we approve them all by unanimous?
yes.
Yes.
I was about to just say that, Board Member Ramsey, a good point. Are there any objections to taking those in aggregate and approving them but by unanimous consent? Okay, are there any objections to approving by unanimous consent those 3 motions? Seeing none, the motions carry. The agenda is reordered, and I will try to keep all of that in mind here. Okay.
Shall we approve minutes of the agenda or of the
I-
previous meeting?
We have,
I believe we have public comment slated before that on this agenda. So yeah, let's go ahead and, Barbara Calavita, do you have something? I'm sorry.
no, I'm sorry, just,
Okay. Okay, yeah, let's go to public comment and then we can go to approve of the minutes.
We have 2 members of the public waiting for public comment. 1 second. Laura, you should be able to talk now.
Hello, can folks hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, sorry, so this is actually Iris Matis from the city attorney's office. I am not able to log in as a panelist, and I request at this moment that the meeting take a recess so that I can speak to Chair Mizell regarding a concern I have about this meeting. I was able to send him an email, but I'm not sure if he saw it. So I request that the meeting be enter a recess for us to speak.
Well, I'm happy to oblige that from the city attorney's office. And I imagine board members don't have any objections to that.
So is there a motion to recess?
Yes, let me move to recess the meeting so we can, so I guess I can talk to the city attorney's office. Are there any objections to that?
You're gonna know when to rejoin. That's my only question.
I do not know. I apologize.
Well,
but
why
I do
don't
not know.
Why don't you talk to Ms. Mattis on your cell phone or
Yes.
mute yourselves?
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and mute myself and just turn off the video. And again, I apologize that this has been like this.
Hmm.
Okay, board members, members of the public as well. Given the advice of the city attorney, we are going to have to cancel this meeting because of the long delay in the start of this meeting, which could have affected the ability of folks in the public to join. We're going to have to cancel this meeting.
Can I ask a question? Can we have the city attorney come in and explain this? I mean, I'm on the line all the time for city council members that are in executive session, and there's like, 45-minute delays, hour delays before they start. Nobody cancels those city council meetings. Why are we canceling ours? I mean, I just don't understand this.
I'm not the city attorney's office board member.
It doesn't seem like it's her decision, so she should come and explain it to us, or we should take a vote on it.
Can we allow her to join so we can hear from her?
Yeah, I mean, she's on as a panelist.
She is permitted
Oh.
to speak.
Okay.
She is under the alias Laura.
We have to do a closed session.
Doesn't seem like it. I mean, it's not a reason, with all the limited abilities for them to give advice in closed session and for us to have closed sessions, and it doesn't seem like it should be a secret. Why didn't she just explain it to us? Because I literally am in line all the time. I waited like more than an hour, I'm sure, for a city council member meeting that was like still going in some executive session or something. Like, why is it that 45 minutes is all of a sudden like doesn't allow us to have a meeting?
I also feel that it's disrespectful to all of us who have been here for over an hour waiting for our meeting, and we have important things to discuss.
I don't disagree with anything that you're saying, Barbara Calaveter, Barbara Ramsey.
Well, if we don't hear more of an explanation, I'm going to move to continue the meeting.
Doesn't she have her hand up? You said she's under Laura Mattis. She has her hand up, right?
I don't know if she's still there. I can give her another call. That is what I can do.
Yeah, well, it would be nice to know. So, I mean, if she can. give
Anthony,
us
can you allow that person to speak? Who?
information, yeah.
They are allowed to speak. They will have to unmute themselves in order to speak, though. And that is done by them manually.
I mean, is there anyone else who is all the time like waiting for meetings to start at city council?
Yeah,
Or other meetings? It happens all the time.
Yes, I agree.
Well, what is the reason that we can't get her on the line? I mean, I don't understand that either. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we
Yes.
can hear you.
Barely, yeah.
So
Sorry, I didn't realize my camera.
Iris has been requested to speak. Again, Iris is under the alias Laura Matz. She has been given permission to speak as a panelist.
Nathan, could you text her or something in case there's some technical problems she's not hearing? Oh,
Yeah.
What explanation did she give you?
It looks like Iris has been unmuted.
Deputy City Attorney,
Iris, are you there?
There she is. Here she is.
Yes, sorry, I am here. As an attendee, it's a little bit more difficult to speak. So I will just say that I have provided Nathan Mizell, who I believe is the acting chair, with our advice regarding this meeting under the privilege of attorney work product. So I'm not going to share that advice in the public meeting. However, I am happy to send that advice that I provided to Nathan to any member of the board who would like to receive it. And it's my and my office's strong recommendation that this meeting be canceled for this evening.
I do not understand this at all. Can I speak, Chair?
Yes.
First of all, we've had numerous situations where the city attorney's office has basically told us they're not able to give us advice under attorney-client privilege in a confidential setting, and that it has to be given extensively. So that's one. Two, the chair alone is not your client. Like, your client is actually the entire board. So
Correct.
I don't understand why you would provide information to the chair, but then not provide it to the entire board, who actually collectively has to make the decision whether to have this meeting or not. And like I said before, I'm not sure you heard, I see routinely that the city council meetings start later, significantly later. I think sometimes more than 45 minutes later than the actual announced time. And then they still carry on with the city council meetings. So other than just sort of a conclusive statement that we shouldn't have the meeting because of 45-minute delay, I'm not understanding what the logic and the advice is beyond that, beyond the pure conclusion. And I guess if we're not going to get any advice about it, then, or any logic or the thoughts behind it, then I'm going to move to at least continue having the meeting. Maybe I'll get outvoted, but I'd like to get some advice.
I'm happy to share. So you're correct that the chair is not our client, the board is, because I don't want to create another potential Brown Act violation by emailing all of the board in the same communication. I am happy to send our advice via email to each of you individually. As a matter of expediency, I sent it to the chair to get the information out, but
that would just be a serial communication, even if you send it to us all individually. So, I mean, whether you send it to us collectively or 9 different emails or 8 different emails to the members, I'm not understanding that's form over substance. There's no difference.
I will send you and our advice via email. Send it to you now if you'd like. I need to confirm I have your correct email. And I'm happy to send it to any other member of the board who would like it.
I think we all would like it.
Okay.
I mean, I'm assuming that some member of the public has complained. Is that correct?
That's not the basis for our advice.
Is there a way for us to review your advice and then come back to this table? Chair, it's really to you.
I don't know. I will be honest. I have never been in this situation before in any meeting I've had in the city of Berkeley or before.
Let me ask you it this way. I don't want to know about the communications between you and Miss Mattis. So don't tell me exactly what she said. That's what attorney-client privilege covers. That's what the work product covers. Tell me what your understanding is, the chair. Okay, I understand you proceed. What is your understanding of what the requirements are for us to have a meeting after a 45-minute delay, and what the reasons are for us to suspend this meeting? I just want to understand the logic behind it. I do not want to know what Ms. Mattis told you. I don't want to know the communications. I want to know what your understanding is about why we need to suspend this meeting.
My analysis was I listened to the advice of the city attorney. That was my full analysis.
But I'm understanding what is your understanding of why? Your understanding of why?
My understanding of,
I don't mean to put you on the spot. I'm trying to avoid attorney-client privilege here.
yeah.
So, attorney-client privilege only covers communications. Okay.
Nathan, Chair,
Yes.
would it be possible for Anthony, as is often done, to close the meeting temporarily? In other words, the attendees would not be in, and we can just have a brief discussion of this, and then like we do when we have a closed session.
The problem is he's then going to have to reopen the meeting, and the attendees are not going to know when to call in.
Oh, okay, so it makes it even worse. All right.
Right.
My understanding of the Brown Act, which is not the city attorney's, obviously. I am not an attorney.
I'm not interested in what the city attorney said to you. I just
My
want to know
understanding
what
is
your understanding.
if we were able to know this to folks on the city website, which I don't believe we're even able to right now with our current situation, that the meeting started 45 minutes late. The meeting has started. The link is now working. I think we could go forward. I don't believe that's happened. And there's nothing I have any control over that can fix that particular issue. I think that's a potential concern. beyond that, I don't have a strong opinion. I merely went with the advice that was given to me. And I mean, I tell board members again, like I'm
not blaming you. I just wanted to know what your understanding was. That's it.
That's my understanding. That
Okay, that's great. I will say this, the link was not broken. Okay, people are saying that, but the link was not broken. I signed into the link. It said waiting for the host to open. And I sat there with the same link that sat open for 45 minutes. And at 45 minutes, it converted and said to me that I had to approve being recorded. But the link was not broken. When you open the link said waiting for the host to open the meeting. That's what it said.
Yeah, I believe that is correct. Yes.
Okay, so can I say something?
Sure.
The fact of the matter is what Board Member Ramsey is saying. This isn't for you to decide. It's not for Ms. Mattis to decide. This is for the board to decide, and we have to make a vote on it. You know, I guess the question is this somehow a violation of the Brown Act? But unless we hear some logic for it being a violation, you know, we have to just use our common sense. And I would say that we're all here. I had the same experience as Board Member Ramsey. That is, I waited with the link and I got on and I wasn't happy about it, but here I am. So let's try to get some work done. And I think nobody from the public's complaining. And I would move that we proceed by vote to decide whether or not, based on the information we have, we should continue with work at hand.
I'm okay, I guess. I mean, I'll be honest. I'd prefer
second
not to
the
be in. The motion is seconded. I don't know. I don't know really what to say at this point. I think we've probably created a number of issues in terms of this conversation and in terms of what I said publicly, that I don't know how to put that back in the box, frankly. And I will, if that's on me, I will take the blame for that. But I'm merely acting on the email that was given to me and what was told to me in public comment to urgently look at your email, because the city attorney told me I need to look at something. And generally when the city attorney tells me I need to look at something urgently, I do so.
No
And
one's blaming you. No one is blaming you.
no, I'm not implying that you are. It's just, okay, we can keep going. I'm just, look, I'm frustrated. I'll be honest. I'm just frustrated with this entire
Some
process.
other board members have their hands raised.
That's right. Let's go to Calavetti.
But
Board
yeah,
Member-
I can snap back and being chair and just put that all aside. Board Member Calavita.
I'm sorry. It seems to me that we have a very truncated agenda, and the one thing that we really have a deadline on is that controlled equipment thing. And I get the sense that most people aren't eager to talk about that at this point. I don't know. I mean, this is an argument for not having the meeting, although I'm agnostic.
Yeah, can we promote the city attorney? Sorry to interrupt you, Board Member Calavita. I was not trying to, but I just saw the city attorney came on the call.
Yes.
City Attorney Brown, can you please offer some advice, and if we have to go into some format to actually talk about it, I'd love to do that and not have it just sent to me. So it looks like I'm trying to run a meeting when it's really for the entire board to know.
Absolutely. And thank you for the opportunity. It sounds like there were a number of technical glitches. So the meeting was supposed to start at 7, and it is my understanding that people were not able to access it. So there's a concern that members of the public may not have been able to access it. And I think that is something that, out of an abundance of caution, we thought it would be prudent to at least consider postponing the meeting, but it sounds like the board is not amenable to that. So it's your prerogative to, if you want to continue and have the meeting, but we do think that there's an option of postponing it, especially if you can just have a special meeting with a 24-hour notice and have it very quickly to get the business done that you need to get done, but have a working link. Because it's my understanding that that was the issue, a link that was not operational.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I know I'm jumping in front. The
Mhm.
link was not broken.
Well,
Meeting was not open. The link was not broken. The link worked.
None of us, we did not start the meeting until the public was able to access it as soon as we started the meeting. It's not like the meeting was going on without the public.
And it said,
We're silently
waiting for, it said meeting, waiting for host to open meeting. That's what it said.
Oh,
People assumed that because it
Yeah,
hadn't been
we
open.
didn't have,
open.
nobody said a word.
Nobody said a word. On the screen, it said waiting for host to open the meeting. 45 minutes later, the host opened the meeting.
And we all got on at that point.
And we had a roll call.
okay. I think it sounds like at least some members were, not members of the public, but one of my staff members was trying to join and was not able to. So, but if
not that
you are
they weren't-
confident that the
Yeah.
link wasn't broken and members of the public were able to participate and are there in fact,
It's that they
participating?
assumed that it's that people assumed that the meeting was going. And because they hadn't been let in, they're saying that the link was broken or they weren't able to access it. That is not factually accurate. The link was operational and it was telling you that it was waiting for the host to open the meeting, and the host did not open the meeting until 45 minutes later. But if you kept your link open and you kept the dialog box open, it opened when the meeting opened, just as instructed. This was a matter of patience.
I think that clarification is very helpful.
I think we're going to continue. We need to go to public comment, because if not, we're going to have a real Brown Act violation for sure. So
We're just not gonna have it.
I apologize for saying what I said based off the advice I was given. Unless there is a motion on the floor to end the meeting, we can go forward. We do need to go to public comment if we're going to go forward. And
Yeah.
we can go through the agenda from there.
Yep.
Okay, I appreciate the advice of the city attorney's office. We're gonna go forward unless there's another motion on the floor. Okay, Mr. Rodriguez, if we can please go to public comment and hear from the folks who've been waiting patiently here.
Yes, we have Emil or Amelie. You should be allowed to talk.
Thank you. I just had the option to join as a panelist, but I won't do that. Just a couple quick things. One, this is Emily Raguso. You guys know me as a Berkeley side reporter and editor, and I just want to say I'm speaking for myself, but as of Friday was my last day with Berkeley side. I will continue to be around because reporting on public safety under my new website, which is the Berkeley Scanner news website, all about public safety in Berkeley. So I just want to make sure it's clear where I work now, so there's no confusion. But I'm just really speaking here as a member of the public. I wanted to affirm what has been said by the board, which is I clicked the link. It said, waiting for the host to start the meeting. And then I waited and eventually I was let in, and some people who I knew were also trying to get into the meeting were giving me reassurance that it hadn't started yet. So that was helpful. And I will also say, I've been at some of those council meetings where it starts very late. The only distinction there, as was alluded to in passing, I think usefully was sometimes they can put up a notice saying, we'll be starting in an hour, we are running late. So that can be helpful, and this is not my decision, but I will say I appreciate confusion because maybe not everyone would have done what we did and just waited and waited. They may have just thought that the meeting wasn't going to happen because they weren't able to text someone who actually knew what was going on. So in that sense, you may have lost people who didn't have the access I had. So in that sense, I could see why it might be good to have the meeting. That said, I would certainly like to see it. And I'm glad you returned to public comment because it's certainly, there's been a lot of strange processes tonight as we all deal with the new staffing realities. So that's all I will say about that. And thank you for giving me the time.
Thank you. We now have a Wendy Alfson. You should be able to talk now. Wendy, are you there? Wendy, you have permission to talk. Wendy, if you would like to say something, we will go down the line and reach you again. Next, we have Cordell.
Oh, God.
Yes. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, one moment, Mr. Hindler. Mr. Rodriguez, can we mute the individuals who are no longer speaking, please? Or turn off talking permission? Okay, I think it's fixed now. Okay, yes, Mr. Hindler, if you could go ahead.
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you. You're breaking in and out a little bit.
So, yes. Oh, thank you. So, good board members, I'm a resident. So I'm hearing a lot of the confusion regarding the meeting. So
Mr. Hindler, I wanted, sorry to stop you. I want to, your audio is very choppy.
I
We're
just
only
had the
getting
land. I
one
didn't have no
another
problems
word or
with it.
so. Is it possible you could try to come back in the public comment with the different position?
Now,
Mr. Rodriguez, can we go to the next public commenter? But we will come back to you, Mr. Hindler, at the end, just to give you a chance.
Next, we have Kit Saganor. Kate,
thank you very much for taking my comment. I appreciate the efforts you all have had to make this evening. I know it's very difficult. I will comment briefly on the ordinances on the use of military equipment. And really, I'm going to ask you to refer to the email that you received on this, the report that was put together by the folks in the, I'm sorry, I wasn't really prepared to talk on this. That you received about the fact that the report does not in fact meet the requirements for the local policies for what's supposed to be in this sort of report, and it definitely does not meet the requirements of state law AB 481. And this is really a problem for the city to put out a report that does not meet the requirements of what the report is supposed to have in it. So you have received in email specific recommendations about what the problems are and what's missing. And I hope you will address those problems and ask City Council not to go forward with a deficient report one way or another. Thank you so much. As I said, I really appreciate the work that you all are doing. I know this has been a very difficult evening for everybody. And I hope that Wendy Alfson can get back in and tell you a little bit more about that particular issue. Thank you. Give up the rest of my time.
Thank you. Next, we're returning to Wendy Alfson. Wendy, you should be able to talk now.
Can you hear me? Yes, I'm Wendy Alfson, and thank you for letting me speak. I did dial in at 7 o'clock, got the waiting for the meeting to open. I stayed on hold. I eventually called in from my phone and a second computer and got the exact same message. So I was on hold on 2 different lines without any disruption. And I was admitted before the meeting began. And I agreed with and really appreciate that the board is proceeding forward tonight as you have this deadline and you don't really have time to meet again before council has to meet on it. In terms of the police military equipment report, the deadline is for the local ordinance report, which was filed by the police department a long time ago. And council had us wait until after the policy and the inventory were adopted, which occurred just before the break. The local ordinance, as we pointed out in the memo, we crossed out the requirements that the department has complied with and left. There's 2 major things that are wrong with it. The most important of which is that a breakdown of where the controlled equipment was used geographically by individual police area. The report has to include the number of days or instances in which the equipment was used and what percentage of those were authorized by warrant and by non-warrant forms of authorization. The department provided a pin map showing each incident, but that map does not have the boundaries of the police areas, and it doesn't provide the other information that allows you to conclude the certification that you have to make with regard to community safety. The report says that it's a state 481 report, but it's not. That report is not really due until to cover the 2022 year. So the report should either be amended to say that this isn't a 481 report, or to note that as a 481 report, it's deficient and the deficiency should be corrected in the next report that's due March of 2023. We put some recommendations, which are basically to ask that the department amend and include these deficiencies, or that the council direct the department to amend the deficiencies for the 2022 report, which has to be filed by March of 23. And I'd be happy to provide any further information. I really appreciate all of your public service and the effort to which you're all going to handle this matter and the other items of business that you have. And I hope that the city will remedy the staffing shortfall that undoubtedly contributed to all the background technical issues. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Next, we have Cordell Hindler. Cordell, you should be able to speak now.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me? Oh, so-
I just want to inform you, your audio is still breaking up, but we can allow you to proceed, but we may not hear much of it, unfortunately.
We can't hear anything now. Sharon, does he believe he's being heard?
He's gone.
Oh.
I believe, he's rejoined. Let's see. Okay. Mr. Hindler, if you want one more possible opportunity to speak, please raise your hand again and we'll see if it's any better. If not, we can either let you go with the bad audio or we'll have to move on, unfortunately.
Cordell Hindler, you should be allowed to speak now.
Yes, can you hear me now?
You're still having the audio problem.
Can you hear me okay? Can I hear myself?
It's a little better, but not very well, to be honest with you. Yeah, I'm sorry you're having this issue. We will have public comment at the end of our agenda, and perhaps you'll be able to have a better audio situation then. But yeah, we will have to move on here. Okay, is there any other hands for public comment? Does not appear so. And let me reorient myself. Okay, I think we're actually at approval of the minutes. Are there any objections or just concerns, anything about the minutes from July 27th, 2022?
I move we approve the minutes.
For motion to
Second
approve,
that.
a second. Are there any objections to approving the minutes of July 27, 2022? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. We moved item 5 down to 10. And looks like number 6 is board members report, which I guess may be in lieu of director. Board member Owens.
I don't know if this is the appropriate time or if this is appropriate, but I'm going to go anyway. And probably some of you have had the same issue trying to reach out to the department and not knowing who we're supposed to talk to, who's our contact, who gives us direction, and not knowing where we are in the process with the director. So I don't know, like I said, I don't know if this is the appropriate time to kind of bring this up, but is there any sort of direction, timeline, anything that we know related to the director position? And in the meantime, currently there's only the admin position in the department. So what are we supposed to do with board members? That's kind of the question. Does anybody know?
The best answer I can currently offer is I do know, there will be interviews in terms of the DPA position this week. Beyond that, I don't know precisely how council will decide to act. In terms of the second part of your question, that I think referred to like who's our contact in terms of staffing, I believe the answer also is we don't know at the moment. I do know that the mayor and other folks in the city are keenly aware of this issue. And, I've been told they are working on it. I believe they are. But right now, there is really no solid answer as far as I know. Board members may know something else.
So just as a question, like the issue we had this evening with just getting into the meeting.
Yes.
not having a person to contact to kind of go, okay, what's going on? What should we be waiting? You know, just not having someone. So I don't know if Mr. Rodriguez is our someone. I mean, but I didn't know who to go to. So I don't know.
I no
I
disagreement.
had emailed Maritza and Beniba, thinking maybe they were our people, because I have the same question and didn't get a response, although a few minutes ago I got a response from Maritza, so
But
it's a good question.
office.
Oh, okay.
So that's why I said the only person there is the admin staff, which is Maritza.
Yes, Beniba is out of the office. And that's, I apologize for folks who have not known, but that's part of the issue. It really is only Maritza at the moment, and she's done amazing work in the background. And even, you know, help Mr. Rodriguez get up to speed, along with, former Director Lee volunteering her retirement time to also help. The issue that with the meeting really was a technical one, and I don't believe it's anyone's fault particularly, but I do know obviously the staffing thing is something that has to be addressed ASAP. I fully agree. I'm not all let board members speak, but like, there's no disagreement on my end. It's just we don't pull those strings. Others will have to, and they are aware. Is there any other reports out from board members? Okay. And yeah, again, I apologize. There's not a better answer, but yeah, it's not in our control, unfortunately. Okay, in that case, we can move to item 7, Chief of Police report. Looks like Chief Lewis, are you still there with us? Chief Lewis. Lieutenant Reese.
Wait, I'm here. Sorry, I'm having some technical issues on my end also. Good evening.
That type of day.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm here. Good evening. I had some information I wanted to share. I will try to keep it brief. I know we're trying to get through a lot today, and folks have been waiting for a while to get started. I did want to mention a couple cases that happened recently that I thought were important to be sure that the board knew about. One was related to an event on the 31st of August. It was a traffic stop that an officer conducted in the area of Stanford and San Pablo. During that stop, the driver admitted to be in possession of some drugs. During a probable cause search of the vehicle, the officer located about 1.5 pounds of fentanyl, and it was rainbow fentanyl. So if you're tracking any of the news or the media right now, that's been very prevalent in communities. It looks like candy. It's ingested like candy. It's extremely deadly. The amount of fentanyl, according to the CDC, so 1.5 pounds was seized. According to the CDC, 2 pounds of fentanyl is enough doses to kill 500,000 people.
Wow.
So, this stop resulted in seizure of that fentanyl as well as a significant amount of methamphetamine. It was really good police work, and I wanted to share that information, just concerning that's in our community. 2 other cases I wanted to talk briefly about. Both resulted in arrests, in custodies, and some good police work. One was a stabbing that occurred on the 8th of this month. A victim was stabbed in the leg and transported to Highland. Officers were able to provide some life-saving measures in the field and put a tourniquet on that victim's leg to help stop the bleeding. And they were also able to apprehend the suspect and arrest them in that case right after it happened. The third case I wanted to talk about happened the next day on the 9th. In that case, there was a shooting in the 10,000 block of Cedar Street. Information was received that the suspect was armed still and was in a residence in that house. officers were able to surround the house and secure the area. The suspect was detained. They were able to get him to the backyard, detained him in the backyard, and safely took him into custody. Able to obtain a search warrant for both the house and the suspect's vehicle, and in that case, located a firearm both in the suspect's vehicle and also in their house. So just some police work I wanted to share with you guys from the last couple of weeks. I know it's been a while since we've had a meeting. I did also want to briefly talk about the Solana Stroll. And that event went really well. Officers were part of that event, both on a recruiting booth, informational booth, but also providing security to ensure that there were no issues and to be available if there were any issues at that event. The other big thing that's going on for us this month is it's Pedestrian Safety Month. So we've had several operations to increase awareness and also do some enforcement around and education around dangerous driving behaviors for pedestrians, trying to drive down the number of pedestrian serious and fatal injuries that we are seeing in our city. And also our officers are attending community events this month and handing out some pedestrian visibility lights to help with folks as they travel around our city and try to keep them as safe as possible. If you're interested, tomorrow we'll have another one of our Coffee with a Cop events. That's going to be at the Sens Hotel and Bistro at 1538 Shattuck from 10 to noon. So we would welcome you stopping by and saying hello to the officers that are going to be there for that event. A real quick summary on staffing. We did have an officer resign this week to go work at an agency that's closer to their home. Our current staffing levels for sworn, we're at 147 sworn. We have 2 officers in our FTO program and 4 in the academy, with one of the ones in the academy set to graduate next month. We are experiencing staffing shortages in a number of our positions, and we continue to work towards exploring, expanding our recruitment retention efforts, trying to come up with best practices or ways to really encourage individuals in our community to find the service that, a job, a career in service in our department. So that's really the focus that we have moving forward. Finally, I did want to make a very clear statement and commitment to this board. And that is about my commitment and our responsibility for the care and safety of our community. That a statement about my responsibility and my since I've been in this position as interim chief, I have endeavored to be forthright, to be transparent, to be collaborative with the community, with this board. And I believe that we need the experience of this board, the oversight pieces of this board, along with the experience and knowledge base and operational knowledge base of the department to collaborate together to really be able to work through policies, procedures, equipment, responses, to build that trust with the community. The community needs to believe and understand that we are able to work together to find the best results for all of our community. And I'm committed to that work. Our leadership is committed to that work. We want to continue to engage in conversations and collaborations. We will continue to participate at the subcommittee level. We will continue to be here and available to answer questions. I have seen really good work emerge when we have truly collaborated. And so I'm focused on us moving forward and building those relationships. I know the board is undergoing changes with personnel. There's the DPA position that needs to get filled. We also have new leadership in our department. And that leadership is going to be responsible. That's going to be much more involved in supporting this board and their work. And with that, I'd like to introduce Captain Mike Durbin, who's on this call. He was promoted with the retirement of Captain Roleri, and he will now be the individual who's responsible for our professional standards division, which is involved in a lot of the policy work that this board's involved with.
Oh, you're muted.
Thank you, Chief, and good evening, PAB, and thank you for the mute. I just want to reiterate my commitment to work collaboratively with the PAB on providing the highest level of public safety for this community. I do have some experience working with the PRC subcommittee in the past, and I truly found that to be some of the most rewarding work of my entire career. And I just want to let you all know that I look forward to building on that and can promise that although I won't have all of the answers, and I don't think that we will agree on everything. I don't even think it's healthy if we agree on everything. We're probably not getting to the best the best answers if we do. But I can assure you that I'll work with mutual respect, professionalism, and an open mind. And you can all rely on me to be a resource as we work through this process. So I look forward to it very much.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief, do you have anything else in your report or?
I don't. Thanks for the time.
I see a hand raised by Board Member Owens.
Yes, Board Member Owens.
I just wanted to say that I appreciate the chief saying that we hope that we can work collaboratively together. I personally, I would like to see action, honestly, from both sides. I mean, I think that we need to step up to the plate as a board to work with not only the department, the union, city staff. I think it's important that we as a board also make an effort to, come together and try to reach that goal of making the department the best it can be. Because my feeling is, if the police department is the best it can be, then the citizens in the city are safer. We won't see bias in policing. So to me, the goal is to work together to make that reality, or make that possibility a reality. So I'm all in for everything that we can do to make that happen.
Board Member Ramsey.
Thanks. Just want to say I appreciated the chief's comments about collaboration and, trying to move forward with it. I do agree with Board Member Owens about actions as well. The one question I just wanted to get clarity on, because I just have been sort of not clear, I've been unclear on it, is sort of when the department plans to sort of provide policies to the board for their review. I know that prior to during the PRC old days, there was sort of an informal agreement that we would see policies 30 days before implementation. I understand that the charter puts an outer limit on 30 days after. I don't think that's a target, but a bare minimum. But it seems, at least from what I've been able to tell, that there hasn't been a set sort of approach to this. And I'm trying to find out whether going forward, we could plan to receive policies that have been changed, at least to get our input 30 days before implementation. I won't get into the specific ones that I think may have been changed that we haven't seen. But I just wanted to find out sort of what you plan the practice to be going forward.
I'm sure I can hit that a little bit. And just to be clear, no policy becomes issued and final in our agency without a copy at the same time it gets issued to the officers. It goes to the DPA. So in the absence of the DPA, that's been going to Beneva, which I now understand is also an issue in this kind of lag period. But anytime a policy goes live, it goes to it as one of the receivers of that live policy is the DPA. So at a minimum, you're receiving it at the same time that the officers are receiving it, or that it becomes actual policy. I think what you're also asking though is, hey, we'd like to get a look ahead of it, right? So that if there's going to be some issue, we can maybe address it before that policy goes live. I will say in most cases that can happen to some extent. In some cases, I can't guarantee that happens, because I've had policies where we've realized something got left out, like amending the one smaller policy around crowd control that still had some tear gas language in it. As soon as I saw that policy, that language is in there, I had it issued removing that language. And so that happened in a matter of an hour of it happening. I can't give you 30 days notice ahead of that happening. I needed to get that policy live, so it reflected the council's direction. So there are times when it won't work perfect. What we do want though is that when we have policies that we think are going to be an issue, or you're going to want to have deep, meaningful collaboration on or voice in, right? We'd like to start identifying those and being able to have conversations early. I just can't guarantee that there always will be 30 days before it'll happen. But we want to move to a place where we're kind of identifying like, hey, these are going to be sticky ones. let's get together, let's recommend and see if there's interest in the subcommittee process or whatever, and have some discussions around, so we can hear your input and your ideas about how something could be framed differently or how it might be received when that policy goes live.
Yeah, I think it would go a long way in the collaboration to try to have that sort of process where we could actually provide input. I think otherwise it may be generally a feeling of a lack of collaboration if policies are being made and implemented without hearing our input. Obviously, we don't get to decide them. So just having our input would go a long way. I do, and it's probably not worth getting into now, but had a question and maybe it was sent to the DPA, I don't know. It was sort of unclear to me that there seemed to be a policy review surrounding treatment of inebriated people in custody that had been reported to us, that there was going to be a review of that policy and that we were going to hear back about it. And I don't think we ever did from anyone in the department. And there seemed to be a suggestion at least when I looked on the police website a little over a month ago, there had been a policy before, I think it was I-5 or I something, that now had been removed. And there was now a new Lexapol policy that addressed some of those issues. And I don't think we ever discussed those. Maybe they went to the EPA. We'll have to check on that, but we definitely never had any discussion or report about those policies from anyone in the police department. So that's just the spirit, I think, of collaboration or actions that would be helpful. Thanks.
Of course, and maybe just to clarify on that one of the things that we committed to as we were exploring the event that occurred was that we were going to look at that policy and see if there were policy changes that were needed to be made to that policy as a result around inebriated suspects or subjects that we interact with. We didn't make any substantive changes that I'm aware of, but we did roll. It's possible that we rolled from the old GO system into the Lexapol system, that policy, and that's what you might have seen reflected. But there was no decision-making process where we changed policies around how we handle those cases under these current conditions.
Okay, and I know that the captain, it was actually Captain Okies, who had reported that there was going to be a review of the policy and that we were going to hear back. And, we never heard back about that. And then whatever there was on
we haven't engaged in review of any kind of changes to that policy.
So no one's reviewed that policy post that incident with the gentleman who was taken into custody at Saul's and released out the back. No one's reviewed that policy.
We've looked at the policy. We haven't made any decisions around making any kind of edits to that policy or whether that policy even needs to be edited. And honestly, from my take on it, what we're lacking is community resources that could have accepted that individual instead, not a fault in our policy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to dive into.
Yeah, I'm saying that's it, you know what I mean. So I don't see that policy will likely change.
Yeah, that's one instance where I guess in terms of just collaboration, where we could where it was discussed that we would get reports back about that, and then we never have. And I know that topic's come up a few times where we've kind of been talking amongst ourselves, but not had anyone in the police department to tell us what the process was in terms of looking at or going forward. We did ultimately, I think 2 meetings ago, open up a policy complaint so that we could have a review of it because we hadn't heard anything. But I think it would be helpful if those sorts of things are going in the department, particularly on something that's of such public significance, to have our involvement. Thanks.
Board Member Levine.
Thank you. I really appreciate the conversation that the chief is initiating here about collaboration. I think it's extremely important, but I think the elephant in the room or in the board here is the incident that happened at the last meeting right before this long holiday. The comment by the anonymous police expert, which really wasn't substantive. It was really a personal, vicious attack. And I, for one, was stunned. The reason I'm bringing this up is because I think it had a tremendous impact not only on me, but on others on the board. What happens when you have something like this unchecked is that others like myself who may wish to make a comment or render an opinion that I perceive may be unpopular, that I may be subject to a personal or vicious attack. I think it has to be called out. I think it has to be identified, that it has to be stopped, because otherwise I'm not going to feel safe rendering an opinion. I will try to be collaborative, and I will say that at least one superior officer in your department has been the most wonderful, gracious, informative, collaborative person and given me a personal feeling of safety in communicating my opinions. But a one-on-one isn't good enough. And I think in a public forum, there has to be civility and it has to be required. And when it's not civil, it has to be called out, identified, and condemned. Otherwise, nobody's safe. So that's my 2 cents on something that I think is extremely important.
Thank you. Board Member Leftwich.
Yes, I just wanted to echo some of Board Member Levine's comments. And Chief, I was actually hoping that you were going to mention the incident and acknowledge what had happened, because it was pretty appalling. And now it's been a while and the board hasn't met, so we didn't have a chance to address it. And this item was taken, it was initially on our agenda and taken off. And all I wanted to say for the record is that I have worked with the board member who was the recipient of this attack for 3 years. And I can say unequivocally that she has the highest ethical standards and level of integrity, and that the personal attack was completely unwarranted and was also egregious since it was made anonymously. So I'm all for collaboration, but I too think that was kind of the elephant in the room, and I wish we could have been a little bit more direct about it without going into the unpleasant details. Thank you.
Board Member Owens.
I think that we as board members have to recognize that sometimes people aren't going to agree with our opinions, and that sometimes people may say things that we feel is harsh. I personally felt like it was an opinion that was expressed, very strong opinion. I personally didn't see it as an attack. And maybe our definition of attack is different, but I didn't see it that way. I will say that I've seen and heard other board members do something very similar with not only the police chief, but I've seen board members do things similar to that to the mayor and the council. And I didn't hear any board member say it wasn't appropriate, it's not collaborative. I think we as a board also need to be responsible as well. So I'm hopeful that we all understand that civility goes both ways, collaboration goes both ways. And I think we as a board need to step up as well. When anyone, whether it be from the police department, the union, or the board, says something that is not appropriate, I think we all have a responsibility to say that. And I think that that's what's going to build the trust on both sides of this, is we all need to take responsibility for when anyone steps over that line. And so for that, I'm just saying that I'm hopeful that we can move forward and hopefully let that be part of the past, and use our guideline as we're all trying to achieve a better department, so the citizens of this city will be safe, will not be, there will not be any bias against them. I think that's all of our goals, at least I hope it is. So I'm hopeful that we can move forward, work together, and not just talk collaboration, but actually do it. That's what I'm hopeful for.
Board Member Calavita.
I'm not really sure if I want to say very much, but I did want to say that it seemed to me, it felt subjectively like the intent of the attack, the anonymous attack, was to attempt to intimidate and silence. But I want to say that it will backfire, because my commitment to fair oversight and to public safety and to racial justice in policing is stronger than ever. And so is my unwillingness to be intimidated. And I really and sincerely hope that once we acknowledge the harms done in the past, we can move forward in collaboration towards goals that I suspect we all share in common. And I really do believe that. I believe that we all share the goal of public safety and racial justice in policing. And I want to reiterate that I do feel it felt like an attempt to intimidate and silence. And I want to say it will backfire. And my commitment is stronger than ever. And I want to move forward now. That's all I'll say about it. Thank you. Thank you for your support.
Thank you, Board Member Calavita. And I'll be very brief. I believe I've been very open and honest in terms of my remarks. I think the most harshest thing I have said is that the chief lied or was unable to control her own captain in the department. I was at a meeting where a captain in this department, a former captain in this department, refused to participate in discussion and said the department would not participate merely because of the order of items at the meeting. That is a fact. The reason I said what I said was because it was so, the behavior of that captain was so different from what had been described to me by the chief that only really two logical possibilities remained. I own that remark, and I believe it was truthful because one of those two things happened. Now, at the same time, I agree with what everyone else has said. We have to move forward. We must continue in this work. And that's what ultimately the citizens of Berkeley will be served by, us continuing in the important work of police oversight and promoting trust. But I believe obviously trust is built when everyone's honest about what has happened, what has transpired. I'll be honest about my comments. I will hope the department can be honest about theirs and their actions as well. And I think if we can build a relationship that surrounds those fundamental pillars, I think we'll be in a better place. But I just want to acknowledge that, so it doesn't appear I'm hiding from what I've said or don't believe it, because I do. And ultimately, I want to move on a better note. But those were the facts of that experience I had, and then we had an even worse experience follow only a couple months later. So I'm ready to move on in a positive way. And I want to be very clear, Captain Durbin, I look forward to working with you as we do other policy reviews. And, when I asked for your predecessor, I asked because I had positive experiences working with him in the past. And I think, unfortunately, somewhere the relationship broke down. But I'm looking forward to starting something fresh, but I do think we have to acknowledge those truths as well. So we can move on. And I want to thank you, Captain, for coming and introducing yourself. And, we do look forward, as I think I can speak confidently as a board, to working with you on many of these policy items. And thank you again, Chief Lewis, for presenting as well. So yes, with that, we can go ahead and move to subcommittee reports. First is Fair and Impartial Police Implementation Subcommittee.
Yes, that needs to be renewed, I guess.
Renewed, okay.
I'm not sure what, it's not clear to me why it needs to be renewed. It's ongoing. But it does not, in other words, will not be dissolved.
It is my understanding that subcommittees have a one-year term, so there will need to be a vote to continue that one-year term for another year.
All right, well, I move that we renew it.
Second. Are there any objections to renewing the subcommittee on fair and impartial policing implementation?
Chair, I have a question. Do we need to, as part of this process, also affirm the current members or see if there's other board members that want to be part of the subcommittee? How does this work?
I don't think we have to do new I mean, I think we could see if other members want to join, but I don't think we have to. I think that's my understanding.
We would welcome new members, but in the past, subcommittees don't automatically change membership. So we could welcome new members, anybody interested in joining at another meeting.
Okay, so yeah, no objections. Believe the motion carries then with unanimous consent. Going to B, dissolve or renew the Director Search Subcommittee. I don't know, Barbara Levine, do you have an opinion on this at this juncture? You're muted, I'm sorry. Barbara Levine, you're still muted.
Sorry, I'm sorry. No, I would just reiterate what you just said, that it's with the city council. You're going to participate in a panel interview of some form or other. Things have been derailed and they're changed and everything's evolving, and it will happen when it happens. But I don't want to dissolve the subcommittee until we have a director.
Yes.
Yeah, no disagreement here. Board Member Moore.
I was gonna reiterate that same point. We should keep this subcommittee until we have a person in place that's holding the position.
Okay.
Is that a motion? Because I'll second it.
Sounded like one to me. So motion from.
I'll second it.
Yeah. Or more, second from Board Member Owens. Are there any objections to renewing the subcommittee on Director Search or the Director Search Subcommittee? Seeing no objections, that carries by unanimous consent. 8C, Regulation Subcommittee.
Apologies for interjection. Who was the first to vote to renew it?
I believe it's Board Member Moore.
Thank you.
Anyone from regulations?
I'll jump in on the regulations. Our former chair was our chair of our regulation subcommittee. So I think at this point we need to clearly keep our regulation subcommittee, and we would totally welcome anybody else that wants to join. Clearly it's important work. So I personally think we kind of tackled the hardest parts of it. I do think there are a couple other little snags in there, but anybody that wants to join us, we would totally welcome it. But yeah, we should definitely keep our subcommittee. And there's clearly nothing to report because we're waiting to hear back from the city attorney's office.
I appreciate that, Board Member Owens. Okay, going to 8D then. The Controlled Equipment Subcommittee and whether to dissolve it. Board Member Moore.
I would say almost the same exact thing. We've got some work to do within this committee. It's going to take us at least to March 2023 for the work that we need to do. I would also welcome more members of the board to join, Board Member Ramsey and myself. But yes, the work continues.
Okay. In that case, Yeah, actually, I think we just have to take no action then. I think we're okay with no action. So seeing no other hands or any other comments, we can go ahead and move on then. And I believe we reordered the agenda to be at the annual equipment use report. Yes, Board Member Calavita.
So I've made some notes about this. I mean, I don't know if other people have things to say about it, but I'd be willing to start. I studied what the experts at the American Friends Service Committee sent around, and I studied the various, you know, the ordinance and AB 481. And I would suggest, and so as a preface, as I understand it, this is the third prong of things required of the city with regard to controlled equipment. There was the impact statement, the use policy, and this is the use report. In other words, the report on how often these pieces of equipment have been used. And this use report part of it, the other two we've done. The use report part of it, or at least we've done partially, I guess. The use report is due to council next Tuesday, so it has to get there the next few days. I think Monday at the latest. I'm not positive about the timing. But here are my comments. First of all, obviously, it doesn't cover a whole year, and that's to be understood because the ordinance wasn't approved until May of 2021. And so that's not an issue. Second, there are some items that are required by 481 as the public commenters pointed out. There are some items required by 481 that are not included here. And the department notes on page 3, and by the way, all of this starts on page 35 of your packet. If you have your packet in front of you, I'm sorry, not 35, 39. So on page 3 of the document, which is page 41 of the packet, the department notes that the inventory numbers and the descriptions you see at the top of the page. Wait a minute. In the middle of the page, the inventory numbers and description of each equipment are referred to in the impact statements. And so some of the things that are required in 481 are not here because they were reported on already in the impact report. Similarly, although not mentioned by the department's report here, similarly, the costs of maintenance and training and so forth that are required by 481 are not included here. I assume that's because they're included in the impact statement, which was previously submitted. So one thing we can say to council, I mean, I assume that we're to recommend some things to council. One thing we can say to council is, you know, if you want these things repeated here, then you need to say so, but they are reported on in the previous impact statement. Also, on page 3, at the top, under C, and this was mentioned also by the public comment and in the memo that was given to us by the American Friends Service Committee. It says a breakdown of where controlled equipment was used geographically, and for each police area, the police department shall report the number of days or instances in which controlled equipment was used and what percentage of those daily reported uses were authorized by warrant and by non-warrant forms of court authorization. Well, in this report, and I don't think you need the page number, but they do mention what percentage of overall what percentage of these uses was by warrant and not warrant. This section of the ordinance, I think, is unclear in terms of whether they want the breakdown for each piece or whether a summary of how many were for warrants versus non-warrants. So, you know, that could be suggested to council as a confusing requirement. All right. There are two other aspects of this that are confusing to, or three other aspects that are confusing to me. One is the language, and I know that we've discussed this before, but the language on deployment. You see the middle of this page 3. It says the section of the ordinance defines deployment as to utilize or employ. But this is very confusing because if you look at the table that you'll see later on in this document where it lists all the different types of equipment that were used, look at number 20, which is a launcher, non-lethal, less lethal launcher. Talks about the man was naked and has prior history of smashing windows to use harm himself. 40 millimeter deployed. But when it says 40 millimeter deployed, that doesn't mean it was used. It's very confusing. And later on the next page, it becomes even more confusing because if you look under number 26, it says less lethal deployed but not used. Okay. In another place, it talks about less lethal deployed but not utilized, which is even more confusing because they've defined on page 3, they've defined deploy as the same thing as utilize. Okay. So I would suggest to council that, and this is in the ordinance, right? Are you're muted, Chip, if you want to say something.
I was just going to ask you what is included. What language are you talking about?
I'm talking about the definition of deployment as to utilize or employ, but not to use. They want to make a distinction between utilizing and using, but at some places in this document, they confuse it. And so I would propose to council, I mean, I think that we should suggest that that definition be clarified in some way, because the average person, I mean, assuming this is a public document meant for the public, they're not going to know what that means. Something was deployed but not used. So I think that that's something that should be brought to their attention. So also, if you look at this table, things that were actually, look at page 5. and look at the last sentence of the narrative. The 5 incidents where less lethal systems were actually utilized are marked with asterisks. So for example, number 1, that launcher was actually used. Okay, there is an example where they shouldn't have said utilized, they should have said used in that narrative. But in any case, they've asterisked the things that were actually used, which I think was pretty clever of them. That's good. But for the other things, we don't know. Most importantly, patrol rifles, for example. We don't know on number 2, a patrol rifle was either deployed or used, but we don't know which. And that's throughout. All right, so it certainly seems to be an important distinction between deployment and use, which they've made that distinction for the launcher, but not for any of the other things like patrol rifles. These are things, I mean, these are things that if I were to make a suggestion, I would say that these are things that maybe should be fixed now, but they certainly should be addressed in the next report next year. They should be cleaned up. And that's pretty much all I have.
Thank you, board member. Yeah, let me go to, sorry, checking the list here. Board member, looks like board member Levine was first.
Okay, so I'm trying to formulate a way to communicate clearly to the council the problem that is presented here that board member Calavita has started a conversation about, essentially by pointing to the imprecision of these definitions. I would suggest that the manner of correction focus on the summary of the facts of what was done and descriptions of these incidents. Describe with precision the piece of equipment and how it was used, not whether it was utilized, used, or deployed, but picked up in the officer's hand, held at the shoulder, pointed in the direction of the suspect, pointed away from the suspect, held down by the side of his pants. At the same time, he said XYZ. I think if we have precision with descriptions of the events, we will have much more understanding of how this equipment is being used, and if there's any recommendation to alter the use or to categorize it in some general way, but based on a clear understanding of what has happened. These are essentially editorial comments taken from a police report that describes in much more detail an event that involves the utilization of this controlled equipment. And I think what we need is a more clear picture of the event itself. In general, my comments about this report from the department is in the same vein, that essentially the question that the legislation, that the ordinance asks is, what did you do to make this happen? Or describe how you're improving these various usages. And I think the chief or whoever assisted in writing this said, we're working on this. The officers are doing in general these various things. But I think if we want to really focus on particular conduct in conjunction with the equipment, we have to have more specifics in the description. So I don't know procedurally how we as a board before Tuesday can give helpful input. But that's just a general description of my feelings about reading this and not knowing how to make sense of it. So, thank you.
I could volunteer to write a 1 or 2 page summary of what we've discussed here. I guess the question becomes whether we recommend that these are things that need to be improved for next year. That we would recommend that these things be modified for the next report. I mean, I don't know how people feel about it. Maybe.
When is that due, the next report?
Well, in a year. Right?
I assume a year from now. I mean, this is an annual report.
Yeah, okay.
Chip, as a member of the committee, do you have any feelings about whether some of these things need to be corrected now, or whether we recommend? I mean, this is the first time around, so they're trying to get it right.
And I understand that. My question would be, is any of this language, would this be detrimental to the community? Is any of this stuff that we do have to tackle right now? I understand the murkiness of the definitions, but at the same time, if we read on, I think they try to explain, especially on page 3, the second full paragraph down, when they go into section 2.100.020,
yeah,
there's a lot of definition where they're trying to explain for the common person what is deployment, what is use, what is utilization.
Yeah,
so I see the effort, even if we want to craft something that might be easier for the layman to absorb, that's okay. But if there isn't anything that's wrong with this, that we'd say, hey, this is a problem, supporting it with the council, I would want to talk about that. If there is something that's affecting this document where we're uncomfortable passing it on. If we wanted to say, hey, in my opinion, if we were to say, hey, we would like to take more time to develop this for next year and work this, this language in, I would have no problem with that. I see every point you're making. That's my thoughts.
I'm going to jump in. I personally think that this is something that can wait until next year, because it sounds like it's just, so when I read it, I understood what they were saying, and I thought they did a good job with putting asterisks next to things where they actually used the equipment versus deployed it. So I didn't really stumble with that, but I do see where that could happen. Now that I kind of really look at it and see there's sometimes they use utilize and sometimes they use use. So I can understand that. But to me, that's more of the language that's used in here. It's not actually related to the actual deployment or use of the equipment. That's not what we're stumbling over. So to me, I don't think it's worth holding up the report. I think we can say that we think that there's some things in here that needs to be cleaned up in terms of definitions, but the actual use itself, which I think that's what we're supposed to be reporting on, I don't see an issue there. And then when it comes to the recommendations or the things that the citizens pointed out that they sent us through email, I agree with Board Member Calavita. I think those things have been covered through the impact statement. And if my recommendation, if the department wants to just tack on the impact statement and resubmit that to the council when they submit the use report and just put it in one little package, then all of that stuff is covered with this one package versus impact statement was, you know, submitted way back when and then this. So maybe they just bundle it all together and send it all, and then that covers everything. But I don't think it's enough. I don't think this report, I don't think there's enough to hold it up. It's my opinion.
Well, so the asterisks were used to indicate use only for the launchers. So actually,
I think that's the only thing they use. That's what they said. There were 5 incidents. It said something. Hang on, let me see if I can find it. It said there was only 5 incidents where they
where less lethal systems were actually
used. So that they only used it 5 times, and it just so happened to be the same piece of equipment. But that's the only time. Those 5 times were the only times they used it.
They were talking about the less lethal, but they weren't talking about patrol rifles.
But isn't patrol rifle part of less lethal? No? Am I messing up?
No.
Okay.
I mean, it's not my understanding that the rifle is less lethal.
True. That's
No,
a good point.
I would just add, it'd be my assumption, just really briefly, it'd be my assumption that they didn't use it at all, and they just did not put in a clear line saying that. I'm sure that's something, an easy fix we could recommend.
Okay. Well, how do people?
Can I, yeah, I was just gonna say, first, thank you, Board Member Calavita, for taking such a close look at this and for offering to write something up. I agree that it's probably not worth holding this thing up, but we should make the points that you've mentioned. I also agree with Board Member Levine about saying, about the factual descriptions being more precise. Well, what happened? Because you can't tell from this report. Presumably they weren't fired, but it would be nice to have more precision in the description so the public and, you know, this board has a better sense of what actually happened and utilized or used. I mean, those terms can be confusing in and of themselves, and as you pointed out, aren't used consistently. So I would just urge, in addition to the other points you made, that in next year's report that they provide more details about what happened.
Is this something that the subcommittee can work with the department to come up with something that works with both in terms of some sort of standardized, you know, this is how it's used. When they say use, this is what it means versus, yeah. Is this something the subcommittee can work with the department on to kind of help define that?
You mean for the future?
Yeah.
I guess that'll be, yeah, up to them, I guess.
Chip, I'm throwing this in your lap, Chip.
Well, I hear you and I see you. My only hesitation is making sure that we would have the board member power, human power behind it, and that we had our collaboration hats on with the police. So I do support it. I'm with it. I think that's a great way for us to go.
So my question now, because the time is late, but my question now is, if people want to go this way, I would be willing to write something and recommend that these are the issues that should be of concern for the next report. But I guess, given that we're without staff and so forth, I don't know how. I mean, I don't mind writing it, but I don't know how to proceed from there. Does anybody?
Rodriguez still with us? Maybe he can help us.
That's where that human power we need is coming in. That's
right.
Well, I mean,
and also you will not. I mean, I appreciate your trust in me, but it seems like it should be something that should be distributed.
I agree.
We just don't have time. You mean and voted on? Unless we have a special meeting, we can't review anything and vote on it.
Right.
Yeah, we're, as far as I know, when the ordinance constrained here, you know, I won't go into my whole thoughts about this whole process with this ordinance, but I think we've been unable to really do the job it was tasked us to do for a lot of reasons that have been out of our control. And in terms of your question, Board Member Calavita, there's not a clear answer. What I will tell you is I can and will commit to speaking directly with council members, the mayor, and whoever else to ensure that we have someone who can act on staff to make sure that any message gets forwarded to council properly. You know, I'm not sure who that person will be. It's likely Mr. Rodriguez will be a part of that, but that's what I can commit to do. I know they're aware of this item and aware that we would have potentially thoughts on it. I don't think they would act in a way of that would not allow us to ensure that it got to them, especially when the issue, you know, lies in terms of the city structure. So that's what I can say at this moment. But certainly, as more is learned over even the next 48 hours and then after the weekend, you know, I'll be happy to. Oh, if I get a full roster of board emails, which I've never had, to blind carbon copy folks, just the information, nothing else, to avoid any Brown Act violations, or have someone else do it for us. But yeah, that's what I can say.
Well, I do think it's important that the council knows that we had this discussion, that there were ideas, all of the different ones that have come up here, that they wanted to be communicated, but we didn't have the ability to do it because of our lack of staffing. And we consider this an important issue, I think. I think, unless somebody objects to that characterization, I certainly do. And I think, and I want the council and the mayor to know that we're essentially hamstrung. I mean, because of the way this director search has gotten derailed and it hasn't been completed, we haven't hired the people that the budget authorizes. Our voices aren't being heard, and we want them to be. So I don't know exactly how to do that, but I think I would feel very comfortable having you communicate that to those people as you just described.
And I will tell you, I already have communicated all of that but I will do so again. But
on behalf
yeah,
of the board, we're
yes,
meeting here as a group.
yes,
We're
that's a very good point.
Public hearing.
So are we going to, I guess the question I have still is, are we going to submit anything in addition to our?
I mean, are there points we can agree on generally that should improve in the next report? I think that's the question. And I'm not opposed to allowing Board Member Calavita to write something up. I have no issue with board members who may have concerns. I won't say just concerns, because I understand that leaves it just to her. But I don't have any other good options other than us calling a special meeting to discuss this, which
Yeah, and we can't.
I'm not in favor of myself. But I don't know. I feel like
it needs to be. I don't think it needs to be very long either, because I know Board Member Calavita, you said 2 pages. I don't know if it even needs to be that long, because you pointed out that there are some things that may be missing that were provided in other documents.
Yeah.
You know, this issue of clarity and ambiguity regarding some usage. So
yeah,
I think something kind of short and to the point that starts out with an acknowledgement that because of the staffing issues and the failure to hire a director, you know, we aren't able to act in the way we want, but we wanted you to know that we did discuss this at our last meeting.
Yeah.
So, you know, something like that.
and so I will write that up, and I will send it to you, Nathan, and you will get it to whoever.
Maybe Mr. Rodriguez, could you help? Could you be the conduit?
Speaking outside of my capacity as a secretary, yes. I am that point of contact between the, Police Accountability Board and the mayor's office. So if you were to send it to me, Kitty, yes, I can make sure it gets read and to the appropriate people.
And do you know, do you or does anybody else know the absolute deadline that I need to get it to you in order for it to get in some form to council by their Tuesday meeting? Will it, if it gets to them on Monday, I mean, I will do this tomorrow, but then it has to go to you and blah, blah, blah.
Right. Well, assuming that it's already on the agenda, it would be added as a supplemental, and that needs to be received before 4:59 at the clerk's office the Monday before the city council.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
But the sooner, the better, so that the mayor and other members would have a time.
Can I make a quick suggestion? Can we have Kitty write it up? Can we have, maybe send it to Maritza, because she's not part of the board. She blind CCs it, sends it to all of us. If anybody sees something that's just like, oh my God, can we say that we would have some sort of special meeting on, well, we'd have to get it to the council by Monday. So we'd have to have a special meeting like before that.
Friday night, I mean.
Yeah, you know what I mean? I don't think we're gonna have to have that, but that way we know, okay, if we see something that's so crazy that and I don't expect it to happen, I don't think anybody else does, but that gives us an out that if somebody does, they have an opportunity to say something. Just a thought.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I just wanted to quickly jump in. That's not a bad thought at all, Rumor Owens. I think there are probably logistical issues. For one, for a special meeting to be called, it would require at least 5 board members to agree to that, or it would require, I believe, me as acting chair to call a special meeting. So we could pass a motion to do that. And if the majority said that's what they wanted and someone said there was an issue, I would studiously call the meeting as voted by the board. But outside of the board compelling that action from me, I'm not going to call a special meeting on this matter. And it require 5 other members to do that. So I just wanted to just mention that logistical hurdle.
But I still like the idea of it being sent around so that people can see it.
Yeah.
Even if there won't be time for, a special meeting might be overkill. We don't have to do that if it's, 1 word or something.
And I'd also say it would give opportunity for board members to, if for some reason, there's some huge issue, and again, obviously I have full trust in Board Calavita is not going to write something we didn't discuss, obviously, but I think that gives board members opportunity to go to public comment or, talk to their council member, talk to them and say, I appreciate what the board said, but I have this disagreement, which, I've done when I've been in, the minority on votes. And, I feel like as long as folks have, at least, 24 hours, hopefully it might be more like 12, but some time to see something and say, okay, I want to say something. I think that could be appropriate given the timeline we're under here.
We have a motion and a vote. I mean, we're 2 hours into this meeting and I'm not including the 45-minute delay.
Yeah. And
we have
so
a motion and a vote. I mean, let's see the proposal.
I'll send it to Maritza. The proposal is, I move that I send it to Maritza and she sends it around blindly to all of you. And hopefully she can pretty it up as well.
I second.
Okay, I think for this is probably appropriate to take a roll call vote. Mr. Rodriguez, are you prepared for that?
Yes. Board member Calavita.
Yes.
Board Member Harris,
Yes.
Board Member Lefwich,
Yes.
Board Member Levine,
Yes.
Chairperson Mizell,
Yes.
Board Member Moore,
Yes.
Board Member Owens,
Yes.
and Board Member Ramsey.
No.
Okay, motion carries. And thank you again, Board Member Calavita, for volunteering to do that. Okay, moving in our agenda, I believe we.
As secretary, I want to remind that if there was an interest to have a special meeting, there will need to be a 24-hour notice given to the public in advance of that
Yes.
meeting, and just wanting to logistically map that out, that if you have something that you want to submit by Monday, Friday meeting would require a Thursday notice.
Logistically, we have no staff. So yeah, and again, Ms. Rogers, I'm thankful you're here stepping in this manner. But okay, moving. But can folks remind me? I think we took regulations off. So are we just to the election, which really is the nomination of a new chairperson? I
That's where we
believe that's
are.
where we are. Okay. Let me see if I can get my standing rules up and going. So folks, I don't know where we're going here. Okay. So these rules are a little different since we're not having this election in January, and just for any interested board members, this election for chairperson would run until January, where there would have to be a new election to appoint a new chair and vice chair. So the nomination process is as follows. I, as the presiding chair, declare the nomination process open. And I apologize, I'm working through multiple tabs. And yeah,
Vice
and
Chair,
any
as you're
board,
working through that, can I ask a question?
yes,
If a person becomes chair, and I know it ends in January, does that prevent them from running for chair in January?
this is a good question.
I can tell you the answer is no. It does not prevent them. You can
I
get
believe,
reelected.
yeah. Well, thank you, Board Member Ramsey.
Okay,
You were quicker than
thanks.
Board Member Ramsey is likely right, so I'll go. I'm about 90% that the answer is no.
I'm 100% sure.
Okay. Oh no, I do really appreciate it. Okay. And yeah, just let me go over a couple other things. So yeah, board member can nominate themselves or can be nominated by another board member. If they are, the person nominated has to accept the nomination, and all nominations need at least a second as well. And then each so let me, does this part take place at this meeting or the next meeting? Okay, no. So yeah, all that we need to do for tonight is nominate folks or have folks nominate themselves. If you get a second and accept, then you will be a nominee for chair. And yeah, so with that process.
There's
open,
something in there about in the interim, I vaguely remember us discussing these rules that if between now and the next meeting, somebody else wants to be nominated, or is it now or never, pretty much?
From my reading, it's let me be careful what I say.
Can you share your screen?
Sure. Sorry, 1 second. I don't know, Ms. Roger, you have it in front of you. You might be faster than me.
Yes, give me a moment.
Okay, I appreciate it.
1 second.
At the second meeting in January, additional nominations can occur.
Yeah,
I see it.
Oh, second meeting, okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Meanwhile, we can nominate people, and those people can spend the next 2 weeks considering it and accept it next week, I assume, if they want to accept the nomination.
Yes. Okay, so are there any nominations at this time?
Any self-nominations?
Board Member Ramsey,
Yeah, I'll nominate Board Member Moore. Don't know if he'll accept it, but
is there a second for that nomination of Board Member Moore?
I second.
We have a response from him.
I humbly accept.
Good.
Are we able to nominate 2 people? I mean, it can the same person, for example, me, nominate 2 different people?
Yes, you only seconded, you didn't nominate.
No, I know, but I'd like to nominate 2 others.
Oh,
Yeah.
there isn't specifics on whether or not you are limited to 2 people, to any number of people.
All right. Well, I'll let others speak first.
Oh, sorry, Board Member Harris.
I'd like to nominate Board Member Owens.
I'll second that.
I'd like to nominate Board Member Mizell.
I think we have to see if Board Member.
Yeah, let's see what Board Member Owens says.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll also accept the nomination.
And I nominate Board Member Mizell.
I would second that.
And I will accept the nomination.
Wow, this is going great.
I'm delighted. I'm delighted that you're all willing to do it.
Usually we have to pull teeth.
Right.
Really good.
Oh, there's always next week, though.
Now.
Are there any more nominations?
Then we move to the vice chair.
So under advisement from the city attorney's office, this agenda item was specific to the chair position. So we need to wait till next meeting to nominate.
Also, the vice chair seat isn't empty.
Yeah, it's not
We have a vice chair.
So there was my understanding is that because Vice Chair Mizell has now been risen as acting chair for the board, that seat is currently vacant.
No, he's only acting. He's
Yeah,
not.
no, actually, Ms. Wright, I think that might be my fault. Thinking about it more, I'm still in that seat because of how the ordinance is written, and how, frankly, the commissioner manual is written. So yeah, it makes logical sense to not have that vote. Yeah,
So you're vice chair, so we don't need to have that election then, is that what we're saying?
no,
Not as of
Becomes
now,
chair.
unless he becomes chair.
If he becomes chair, then we'd have to do the whole process for the vice.
Well,
So for now, we
complicated.
don't.
yeah, we could potentially, and again, not trying to open up the whole box of things here, but like we could agendize the standing rules and just tweak them slightly to allow ourselves in the case something that happens where I'm not vice chair, to appoint someone sooner than waiting another meeting. But we can just think about that. And yeah,
The standing rules should also address the situation that we're in, where the chair steps down, whether or not the vice chair automatically becomes chair, right?
I think the commissioner manual addresses that.
Oh, okay,
The answer is no.
okay. Well,
Looks like we have 3 nominations.
So any more nominations? If not, we're finished, right?
We have public comment.
Then I will I don't know if I have to close the nomination process right now, but I will close it for now and it can reopen at our next meeting. Thank you to the folks who are willing to serve.
Then
And
is
yeah,
there anything in there, since I'm again surprised but pleased that 3 people want to do it, because I know it's a lot of work. So given that fact, I don't think the rules say anything about, you know, the nominee writing up a statement or anything, right? Because now I'm kind of curious to hear why people want to do it, because I didn't think so many would want to.
Each nominee is allowed 2 minutes to express their reason for seeking the position. So I guess we'll do that next time.
Okay.
Yes, and I do want to just provide very, very briefly to the board just one issue, which I'm hoping to have an answer for by our next meeting. As it is public knowledge, I am running for the Berkeley Rent Board. I only mentioned that this meeting insofar as it's relevant to potentially my ability to serve as chair past December 1st, if I am elected. It's a bit unclear, in my opinion, whether the charter and the other applicable ordinances would allow me to serve or not if I am elected. I think, frankly, there's different interpretations. I'm going to ask the city attorney just directly if they can look at it and let me know. If the answer is no, you cannot, then if I was chair or if it's on the board, I would have to step down on December 1st if elected. And if the answer is, oh yeah, you can still serve, then I would serve out obviously that full term until January when a new chair and vice chair is considered for election. So just want folks to know that.
Can you find out right away? I mean, hopefully.
Yeah, I'm going to look to get an answer in the next couple of days here, and certainly before our next meeting, so folks will be aware. Board Member Ramsey, did you have something?
No, I think we have public comment though before.
Yes. Okay, yeah, thank you, folks. Let's go to public comment.
All right. First we have Cordell Hindler. You should be allowed to talk.
Now, can you hear me now?
Yes, at least there we could.
Good. So good evening. Can you start the clock back? I kind of bobbled a little bit. So good evening, Chair Mizell, board members. I am Cordell Handler and I am a Richmond resident. So first, if I have to rate, I would rate this meeting on a scale of 1 to 10. I give it a 7 because the length of the meeting has been going on for way too long, because I feel that as a resident, I have been in similar meetings that I tend to go a little lengthy. So I'm suggesting that they need to keep the agenda, as is, because I feel that I don't get my voice to be heard, because it's unacceptable. Because if you recall, what was it, 2 meetings ago, I was looking at the minutes from the July meeting, and when I saw the adjournment time, I was like almost 11. I'm like, that's not being thought, that's not keeping things in mind. Because my suggestion is that that if you can't get to the other items, in the allowed time, I would have tabled them for another time because of time constraints, because the staff has to come back, they have to come back the next day, and they have to be able to focus on their focus. So I'm just making an observation on how the meeting should proceed, and further out. Number 2 is as far as the dissolving the director subcommittee, I think you ought to keep it for now, because until when the new person comes on board, and it's been very difficult. So I'm hoping that things will get a little better. So, and I'm gonna try to I'm gonna start trying to come to y'all meetings, as necessary, because to voice my opinions on how things would have been done differently. So I'll just yield my time to someone else.
Thank you.
Next, we have Charles Clark. Charles,
Mr. Chair, hello?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman and members of the board, I am Charles Clark. I guess I have some information. At last night's city council meeting, the mayor announced that there would be a special council meeting on Tuesday, the 20th at 10 o'clock in the morning concerning the Director of Police Accountability appointment. The actual contents of that meeting were not really disclosed. I believe it would be a closed session, but even that is not clear to me. So I think that would be useful to hear from the mayor's office about. It has not yet appeared on the city council agendas site yet. I had occasion to look at that page, and I noticed on the meeting for that evening, that is the Tuesday meeting at 6 p.m., that the use report is not currently agendized. So I think that too is something worth checking in with the mayor's office and the clerk's office about. As far as the substance of what you've been discussing this evening, I share board member Calavita's concern about the confusion arising from the use of language, specifically the term deployed, which is in the controlled equipment ordinance, and its correlative verbs like use or utilize. And I might suggest that you actually introduce the idea of display, where an object is flourished or brandished or produced in the presence of others, versus it's being discharged or activated. Now, the problem with that second verb, that second class of verbs, is that controlled equipment covers a vast array of territory. We have the less lethal launchers, the patrol rifles, those can be said to be discharged. But then we also have the LRAD and pepper spray and flashbang grenades. So you might want to look for a verb that connotes activity. And so I would suggest perhaps activate, or, if you wanted to adopt a term the Department of Defense uses, dispensed, where the weapon or the object is actually, put into action as opposed to just appearing on the scene. So anyway, so deployed is too broad. I think the distinction between display and activation would be useful for your for next year's report, certainly not for this year's report. Anyway, it's a very difficult thing navigating through legislation, and I thank you for doing it.
Thank you, Mr. Clark, and thank you for the informational pieces as well.
Next, we have Kit Saganor.
It's late. I just very briefly want to thank you for your work this evening. This was a very difficult start to a meeting after hiatus, and you have some real challenges and some real issues, and I really appreciate your good judgment and good work. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, are there any more hands for public comment? Oh, yes, there are.
Emily, you should be allowed to talk now.
Thank you. I'll just second the interest, or maybe even third, since I think the board surfaced this idea of clarifying some of the language and around displaying or deploying. And I do recall when council was discussing sort of the use of force rules and the changes that were made, that there were discussion of these terms that if there is no clarity, BPD doesn't know how to report them, and then we don't know how to understand it when it is reported. So the more clarity there can be about this, absolutely the better. So I'm happy to hear everyone is on the same page about that. And thank you, everyone. And if I'm looking forward to attending Coffee with the Cops in the morning and would love to see some of you there because it's been a minute. Thank you.
Thank you. Alrighty. Seeing no hands for public comment. Before we adjourn, I want to thank everyone for being a part of, the smoothest meeting I've ever chaired. I think this is the first meeting of the PRC or PAB I ever chaired. Very smooth, no issues whatsoever. I appreciate all of you being a part of it. I know it was perfect, so nothing else really needs to be said. A motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I will second that motion.
Ready. A motion and second. Are there any objections? I know we want to stay in this great meeting, this smooth meeting longer. I know you want to stay up longer in this meeting.
I'm just kidding.
See you in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Have a good night, everybody. Thanks for coming. Thanks for sticking in there. Public
Meeting is
members
adjourned.
as well.
Good
10:06.
night.
Thank you all.
Thank you.